Embarrassing. That's what that was. Embarrassing. Manchester City have just drawn 0-0 against Southampton at the St Mary's Stadium today in a vital game for Champions League football, and that was nowhere near good enough. Failing to score against one of the worst teams that we have ever seen in Premier League history, and the worst team in the Premier League this season by a distance, is just nowhere near good enough. You know, they've conceded 82 goals this season, and we failed to put one past them. And as a matter of fact, to make it even worse, over the 2 games that we played against this Southampton side, we scored 1 goal. We won 1-0 over a tie of 2 legs against Southampton this season in the Premier League. And don't get me wrong, look, Southampton played well today. They defended really deep. They cut off the spaces in behind. They marked Erling Haaland really well. And they defended their box like their lives depended on it. And for that, you've got to say that Southampton gave a lot. I think they gave their fans a lot to be proud of today. And I thought they put on a good performance for Southampton. But for us, we didn't put on a good performance today. We were so slow in that first half. The lack of speed in our play, the desire to go and take on players to try and make something happen. I mean, my word, that first half was just so piss poor. You could just fall asleep watching a game like that because there was nothing to get you off your seat. No one was trying to make anything happen. It was all passes on the edge of the box. Oh, we'll pass. Maybe Ruben Diaz will take a shot from the edge of the box. Like, how are we expecting to score a goal like that without any sort of inventiveness whatsoever? And okay, we can look at each wide position. We can say Jeremy Doku didn't play. We can say Savinho didn't play, and we didn't have natural wingers out there. But even James McAtee and Phil Foden on either flank in those halves, I would have expected more from them in terms of trying to take players on. Now, I actually do think Phil Foden at least tried in that first half. He was one of the few players that did try. But James McAtee, I mean, he might as well not have been on the pitch in the first half. And really, from that first half, there was only really one player that I could say that had a decent performance, and that was Josko Gvardiol. He was making those runs in at the back post. At least he was looking like a threat of a bit of a danger. He was trying to get balls back across, try and, arrive at that back post, make something happen. So from Josko Gvardiol, I think he was the only one I could probably walk away from that first half and say, you know what, fair play, you tried to do something there. And then in the second half, look, granted, it got a little bit better. Jeremy Doku came on. He was kind of our outlet on that left-hand side. Now, he didn't have his best game today, but he still was the only one that was really creating things. He was, taking on the fullback. He was actually trying to make things happen, and Jeremy Doku was causing them problems down that left-hand side. And I felt like we, picked up the pace of our passing maybe in the first 10-15 minutes of that half. But across the second half, I would say not until the last 15 minutes did we really put it on Southampton. And I know obviously Southampton, they begin to get a little bit more leggy towards that period of the game. And maybe that's a little bit of the reason why Southampton began to wobble at the end. But I just felt like we put nowhere near enough pressure on. And I feel like our substitutes were really reactive as well from Pep Guardiola today. Bringing on Savinho as late as he did, I just felt like he could have been brought on in the 60th minute. Keeping Bernardo Silva on the pitch when he offered nothing across the game creativity-wise. Again, I just do not understand why Bernardo Silva can't be substituted. It seems like a thing that Pep Guardiola, where he just can't substitute him. He'll bring off Rico Lewis at right back and bring Bernardo Silva at right back before he takes Bernardo Silva off. And also Marmoush coming on at the end of the game. Marmoush had a really good opportunity. He pounced on the loose ball in the box. He gets a strike off, an absolutely wonderful strike, which cannons off the crossbar. Really, really well hit from Marmoush. But again, he wasn't given anywhere near enough time on the pitch today. He came on, I think, at around the 83rd minute. I don't remember specifically, but somewhere around that time of the game. And that is just nowhere near good enough to be bringing on players to try and win the game against Southampton when we need the win. It's not like, this is a dead rubber game where we can kind of go, well, Man City weren't kind of at it because there wasn't anything on the line. Everything was on the line today. In terms of getting level on points with Arsenal, that was really important because they go away to Anfield. If they go away to Anfield and lose that game, they drop points against Newcastle, we win our next 2 games after this, we could have gone second in the Premier League. And not only that about going second in the Premier League, but it's also about Champions League football this season, because Nottingham Forest, if they win their game, they're 1 point off of us. And that now puts Champions League football in jeopardy if we do not get maximum points against Fulham and Bournemouth. So I think that this is not just a bad result, not just a bad performance. This could completely change how we finish our season, and I really, really hope I'm wrong, but it's really worrying to see a performance like that when we need to go and win. And don't get me wrong, Southampton contributed to that because of the way that they played. They played so deep. They didn't really try and attack. They didn't really try and do much other than, a couple of moments in the second half. But we had to do more. We've played against those type of sides many, many times before where they sit in, they deny spaces. We have to find a way. And today, we never looked like we were going to find a way. And overall, from the game today, I could really pick out a handful of players who I thought had a decent performance. I thought Foden actually played decently well when he was on the pitch. He puts in an absolutely unbelievable ball where I do actually think that Erling Haaland probably should read it better and get towards the back post from a free kick. So Foden, I thought, had an alright game. I thought he created a couple of chances. He was at least trying to make things happen. Balls into the box. He was getting on the ball, trying to make things happen. So Phil Foden played alright. Gvardiol, as I said in the first half, he played well over the span of the game. I don't think Diaz had a bad game, but, you know, again, he didn't really get tested, so there's not really much that you can take from that. Other than that, I really can't even point out another player that had a good game. I thought Haaland was just completely anonymous. He had absolutely nothing to do throughout the game. Maybe Jeremy Doku as well, who came on. He was taking players on. Had a couple of mistakes during the game where he gave the ball away a little bit cheap. However, he was trying to take it on his fullback. He was trying to make chances, so I give him a pass for that. But yeah, there's just not that much to even talk about from the game, to be honest, because there's not really much that happened during the game. Not many clear-cut opportunities either way. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm making excuses here for not winning today because we weren't good enough to win, but I don't know how that's not a foul on Manuel Akanji in the first half. We put a ball into the box. I think it's from a free kick situation. We put the ball in the box. Manuel Akanji obviously goes to run into his position to try and get on the end of it. He's nowhere near the ball. The player that fouls him is nowhere near the ball. He just shoves him to the ground. Blatant shove. Should easily be a penalty in my opinion, and VAR and the referees did not give it. And ultimately, in that game today, if that is given as a penalty, Erling Haaland scores it, and, you know, the game went the way it did, we would have won today, and that could have massive ramifications on the league. But I'm not going to sit here, not going to make excuses. We weren't good enough today, but I thought that was a really piss-poor decision from the referee today. But moving on to the player ratings, because as I said, there's not really that much to talk about from today, and we're going to be starting off with Ederson in goal. I'm going to give Ederson a 6. He just didn't really have much to do throughout the game, if being completely honest. He was a bit of a spectator, so for me, I'm going to give him a 6. Then for Rico Lewis at right back, I'm going to give a 6 as well. He did all right at times on the ball, gave away the ball a couple times in the first half. Obviously, ended up getting replaced in the second half. Just didn't really have that much of an impact on the game. So for me, going to give Rico Lewis a 6. And for Diaz and Akanji, I'm going to give them a 7 because ultimately everything that they were kind of asked to do today, they kind of did well, on the ball. They didn't really give the ball away much. They were quite smooth in possession. And on top of that as well, when Southampton did rarely attack, they did deal with the attacks quite well. So for me, going to give Diaz and Akanji both a 7 for today's performance. Then for Gvardiol at the left back position, I'm giving him an 8. I thought he was probably one of the better players today from us. I thought he was the one that, especially in the first half, was really the only attacking outlet that we had down that left channel. And I thought he was overall quite good across the game. Then moving into the midfield, Mateo Kovacic, I'm going to give him an 8 as well. I thought he was actually probably one of our outstanding midfielders today. He got through a lot of work in the midfield. On the ball was really good, trying to slide some incisive passes through the midfield. Wasn't the easiest game in terms of, playing in front of that low block, but I thought Mateo Kovacic did quite well. Moving on to Bernardo Silva, 6. Just had no impact on the game whatsoever. Again, I do not know how he continues to play 90 minutes all the time when he doesn't have good performances. I don't understand what it is with Pep Guardiola. I don't know why he would rather play Bernardo Silva at right back than just bring on someone for him. I'm not quite sure, but I don't think Bernardo Silva had much of an impact today. Then for Kevin De Bruyne, I'm going to give him a 7. Not as great as performance today by any means, but I thought he was quite solid. Create a couple of chances, put a couple of good balls into the box. So overall, not his best game, but still, I thought he had a decent game overall. Then for James McAtee, I'm going to give him a 5. Some people might say that's a little bit harsh, but you've got to say that he was completely uninvolved in that first half whatsoever. He did get the ball a couple of times, but just nowhere near any sort of creativity from that right-hand side, and there's a reason why he was subbed for Jeremy Doku at half-time. Then moving on to Phil Foden. I thought Phil Foden actually did all right during the game. He's obviously not been in good form, not really been playing recently, but I thought he played decently well. He was one of the players that was trying to create things. I thought he put a couple of good balls into the box. I thought he actually looked like he was trying to make things happen today. So I'm going to give Phil Foden a 7 for today's performance. And then for Erling Haaland, I'm going to give him a 6. He really had nothing to do throughout the game. No service whatsoever. So I can't really blame him because you know, he's a striker that relies upon service, and when he doesn't get any service, you can't expect him to make something out of nothing when he's got 3 centre-halves and a whole bank of midfield all sat around him in the box, marking him out the game. Then on for the substitutes. For Jeremy Doku, I'm going to give him a 7. Continued to try and make things happen in that second half. I got to give him credit. You know, it doesn't always go right for him, but I really do like how he constantly drives at people. He constantly tries to make things happen. He's so electric. He's exciting to watch, and at least made the second half a little bit more entertaining. Then for Nico O'Reilly, give him a 6. Didn't really do much when he came on, if we're being completely honest. For Savinho, I'm going to give him a 6. Just didn't really do much, similarly to Nico O'Reilly when he came on. He had a couple of opportunities to run at his fullback. Didn't really do much of it. So for me, I'm just going to give him a 6 because he didn't have an impact on the game. And then for Omar Marmoush, I'm going to give Omar Marmoush a 7. As I said, he had that one opportunity where the ball was loose in the box. He pounces on it. He has a wonderful strike. It crashes off the bar. He's unlucky not to score. And he wasn't on the pitch for long, but he still managed to make his mark on the game. And he also had that one opportunity, or that one play where he gets the ball, he picks it up, and he drives all the way up the pitch on a transition. So for me, Marmoush at least did something when he came on, so I'm going to give him a 7. And that wraps up the player ratings today. Really, really poor performance, if being completely honest. Southampton probably deserved a point in the end. I thought they played well, they defended well. They probably did their fans proud today, obviously, with the fact that they have been so poor this season. For us, nowhere near good enough. Just really, really flat. Poor performance. I've seen some quotes from Diaz after the game blaming, you know, the way Southampton were playing, going down, wasting time, the pitch being dry, all this type of stuff. It's not for those reasons. We just weren't good enough today. And that is the simplicity of it. Really, really poor, embarrassing performance in many ways, and an embarrassing result in many ways today. Hopefully, we can still go on and get Champions League football this season. But yeah, today is absolutely a day to remember. And to be quite honest with you, not many people are going to be remembering that match of football. So yeah, Manchester City 0, Southampton 0. Champions League football is still in jeopardy. We need to go and beat Fulham and Bournemouth between now and the end of the season. But yeah, I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day because one thing's for sure, did not enjoy from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. But I'll see you guys in a little bit. Peace.